What's up, y'all? Well, we made it through 2025. 2026 is just about to hit us, so we'll see what that has in store. Thankfully, I am on the mend, so now is the perfect time to give you my ranking of all 97 movies I have watched this year. Yes, that is probably too many movies, so I'm gonna try and make this super quick for each movie so that this video isn't 3 hours long. So let's just get right into it. And coming in at last place is a little movie called Snake Creek, about three friends who go on a river trip and come across crazy rednecks and their killer pet snake. Now, it almost feels unfair to include this on this list because it's so low budget and it is just a straight to Tubi movie, I believe. But I was expecting at least an enjoyably bad movie out of this, and there's no enjoyable in it. It's just fucking bad. It's got bad production, bad writing, bad acting, and bad effects. And I'm one who can't stand CGI, especially in horror movies, but I actually would have preferred if they tried out shitty CGI over what they tried to do here for the creature effects. It just looks like a painted rubber hose that they just wiggled around on screen, and it's just laughable, but not in the good way. It's just mind-numbingly dumb. It's literally so bad it almost makes me want to laugh, but it doesn't quite hit that so bad that it's good, and thus, it's just bad. At 96, we have Trust. Sophie Turner is an actress trying to hide out after her personal details got leaked, revealing that she is pregnant. And you find out that the father of the child is actually a married co-star of hers who will do anything to keep this a secret. Sound at least somewhat interesting? Neat. You can have Sophie Turner locked in a utility closet for 90 minutes. Seriously, what the fuck was this? This was just so boring and baffingly dumb. It wastes all of its potential just to have her stranded in a closet. And I swear the movie's even more logical than I'm making it sound right now. It is just all the worst versions of awful. At 95, we have The Man in My Basement. And this is not the mystery or thriller that this movie was marketed as. It's just a drama with long conversations between the main dude and Willem Dafoe, who for some reason that's never fully explained, voluntarily locks himself in this man's basement. Why does he pick this man? Who gives a shit? It's not as interesting as it should be, or it thinks it is. And it actually does set up a few intriguing potential places to go, just to do absolutely nothing with them. Just a complete waste of time. At number 94, we have Brick. No, not the cool Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Rian Johnson movie. This was a very boring and forgettable movie about people being trapped in their apartment building that I honestly have a hard time remembering anything about besides not liking the answers I was giving and having a pretty miserable time the whole time I was watching it. At number 93, we have High Rollers. Now, I like John Travolta, and I am willing to watch a movie that I'm almost guaranteeing to be a shitty movie with him in it, just on the off chance that I do like it. Unfortunately for me, this was just that, a shitty movie with John Travolta in it. It's got really bad acting and really amateur production value. And that's coming from me. I mean, have you seen my videos? It was bland at the best of times. And I didn't even realize that this was a sequel to another shitty movie starring John Travolta that I have absolutely no interest in checking out. At number 92, we have Gunslingers, a painfully bad shoot-'em-up western starring Nicolas Cage, who strays way too far off into Nicolas Cage territory. That fucking weird voice he keeps doing is so unintelligible and irritating. It drove me nuts 15 minutes into the movie, and there was still 80 more minutes to go. I love that he keeps deciding to do these weird offbeat little genre flicks, but this one was just not a winner for him. At 91, we have The Strangers Chapter 2. And to its benefit, it's better than Strangers Chapter 1, I guess. That's not really saying much, though. The only one of these stranger movies that I actually do kind of enjoy is Prey at Night. And this one was just so dull and forgettable, besides that ridiculous-ass boar scene. I mean, what the hell was that? It just felt like a complete waste of time, which sucks to say because I am such a big fan of some of Rennie Harlin's earlier movies. I would have thought him doing a slasher trilogy would have been an easy home run. Instead, he's now 0 for 2, and I don't have high hopes for the third one. At number 90, we have The Woman in the Yard. Now, this did have some potential, but it completely squanders it all. It is boring and unengaging, and it just gives the vibes of way too many other similar movies in this genre. And I absolutely hated the ending as well. It did not land or was executed well at all. At number 89, we have War of the Worlds. Now, this is entering so bad that it's entertaining territory. Ice Cube must save the world behind his computer screen because of COVID. It is absolute garbage, but I would much rather rewatch this movie a couple of times before I watched anything below it on this list even once. And that's simply because it's hilarious for how dog shit it is. I love Ice Cube. He is not the type of actor to carry this kind of movie. At number 88, we have Happy Gilmore 2. Now, this started out with a couple cheap laughs, but it got way too over the top and idiotic the longer it went on. This was just a heartless sequel to a classic comedy, and instead of relying on good jokes, they just instead dive for nostalgia and cameos that drag out this runtime beyond belief. This should have been a rematch between Happy and Shooter, or Happy and his kid versus Shooter and his kid with the new generation. Instead, they overcomplicate it with depressing storylines and really lame gags. One of the biggest disappointments of the year for me. At number 87, we have Great White Waters. Better than you would expect going in knowing it's an asylum movie. Now, it's not the worst shark movie I've ever seen, but that's not exactly a high bar. But it is the worst shark movie that I saw this year. It's forgettable with bad effects, but if you like shark movies like I do, there are way worse things that you could waste your time on. But I couldn't possibly justify putting it any higher than this. At number 86, we have The Pickup. Given the cast, this movie is surprisingly unfunny. I love Eddie Murphy, and I love Keke Palmer, so they got a couple laughs out of me. This one just wasn't hitting. I just don't care for Pete Davidson as an actor in movies. He's just not for me. You're supposed to sympathize with Keke Palmer's character, which I find it hard to do. It was just a very meh movie, and it seemed like it should have been such an easy layup at least. At number 85, back on the topic of big disappointments of the year, we have Wolfman. And woof, what the fuck happened? I absolutely love werewolf movies, and I'm a big fan of all of Leigh Whannell's other movies, so this was nowhere close to the werewolf classic I was hoping for. It's not even an average werewolf movie. I don't know what happened between The Invisible Man and this, but the writing and the directing just feel dragged way down compared to what I'm used to for his movies. There are still some cool shots though, like the wolf POV is really awesome. I liked that aspect of it. It was just really boring. It feels like it wastes a lot of its potential just doing nothing, being stuck in this house, trying to explore weirdly unnecessary trauma, because that's the popular thing nowadays, I guess. And I also did not care for the wolf design at all. I know it was kind of trying to harken back more to the original Wolfman stuff, but the wrong choice. At number 84, we have Trail of Vengeance. Average revenge western. Generic with dull acting and writing. Nothing particularly terrible about it, but nothing particularly good about it either. I like westerns, so it's probably a bit more favorable on it than it deserves, but it's nothing insulting at least. At number 83, we have In the Lost Lands, a forgettable post-apocalyptic blockbuster type movie. I mean, you pretty much know what to expect when you walk into a Paul W.S. Anderson movie. Bad exposition-heavy dialogue, a not particularly interesting story, and a heavy emphasis on visuals. It's not the worst way that you could spend 2 hours, but it's nothing I would go and seek out. I'm probably a little bit nicer on it because it has Dave Bautista in it, and I've loved him since his WWE days. At number 82, we have The Electric State. Yet another forgettable post-apocalyptic blockbuster type movie. For how much money was spent making this thing, absolutely none of it was put into heart. And you'd think for how expensive it was, I'd be able to remember something about it. Just super bland and generic. I feel like I've already said generic too many times in this video. I'm struggling to remember things from this movie besides the Mr. Peanut character and the little robot voiced by Anthony Mackie. I thought he was somewhat entertaining. It had a few laughs, but it felt very hollow. Definitely not what I would expect out of a Russo brothers movie, especially all the good things I heard from their Marvel stuff. At number 81, we have Osiris. Special ops soldiers are abducted mid-mission and awaken upon an alien spaceship where they must battle for survival. Pretty decent given it's a low-budget action sci-fi flick, but the plot sounds like it should be so much better of a movie than it turns out to be. There's a few too many people lurking in corridor sequences and a whole lot of logic issues. It's got some really good ideas, but the script just needed some extra attention. But I do love these contained, single location, bottleneck type movies, and I do love me some killer alien movies as well. And this one's got some entertainment value. I think it's just more frustrating because this movie should have easily been an 8 out of 10, and instead it's just like a 4.5. At number 80, we have Gator Lake, aka Lake Jessup Bonesaw's Bone Crusher's Revenge, not Bonesaw. A fairly generic monster movie with some annoyingly cheap kills, the lame cutaway, someone screams, and then quick flashes type of kills. I hate that gag. Did have some spots that made me chuckle, but for someone that loves Animal Attack movies, I just have no desire to ever rewatch this movie again. At number 79, we have Honey, Don't. And I love neo-noirs, and I love private eye mystery detective movies, and this was just not very good, and it's not a good mystery either. It squanders its ideas, its premise, and its stacked cast to focus on being a quirky indie movie making some political statements over just trying to be a compelling movie. I'm not even a religious person, but I just don't understand the fascination with constantly demonizing this shit in movies. Like, what are we doing? Oh well. And there's not nearly enough Charlie Day in this movie either. Since the split with his brother, I don't think Ethan Coen has been doing very well. It's a very disappointing movie all around. I mean, you do get to see Aubrey Plaza's nipples, so that's pretty cool. At number 78, we have The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And this just felt like a Lifetime Channel remake of the original. I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I love Micah Monroe. I think they're both really talented. And I think they're both just so lifeless in this movie. Weakly written characters for them also are not helping. It's not anywhere as good as the original, and even if you don't really compare it to the original and try to look at it as its own thing, it's still not very good. I like that they tried to do something a bit different with it, but it just fell so flat here. For 77, we have A Merry Little Xmas, a generic holiday rom-com starring Alicia Silverstone, Oliver Hudson, and Melissa Joan Hart. I can honestly hardly remember anything about this movie, and I just watched it like 2 weeks ago, other than the Chet character was very entertaining. He wears a lot of hats. Alicia and Oliver are divorcing, or consciously uncoupling. A fucking stupid-ass term. And they start dating other people. I chuckled a couple of times, but I can't remember any of the specifics. Number 76, we have The Home. As I said with the pickup, I do not care for Pete Davidson as an actor, and I especially don't think he is talented enough to carry a movie like this on his own. He gets some help from actors you might recognize, but when he's on his own, it gets a little rough. But this does have a very intriguing premise, but then it just really muddles up its potential. And there's a nice bloodbath in the third act, and some really fucked up reveals, but it's nowhere as good as it should have been. At number 75, we have Fear Street Prom Queen. and this was just painfully generic, nowhere close in quality to the original Fear Street trilogy. It's lazy, and it puts in no effort to be very 80s besides just kind of using it as a cover aesthetic. And it's not particularly memorable, but I am just a sucker for whodunit slasher movies. That's why it made it as high as it did on this list. At number 74, we have I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I know what I'll be doing next summer, and that is not watching this fucking thing again. Unfortunately, I did have the killer reveal spoiled for me by someone in a Facebook group. Fuck you, Daniel. So I wasn't able to walk in with any kind of sense of mystery, but I still wasn't prepared for how bad of an execution it was. There's an idea there with the spoiler, skip 10 seconds ahead if you don't want to hear spoilers, Ray angle, where that could have been done so interesting, but the way they go about it, it's just so mind-numbingly dumb. Like, what were you thinking? There's a few decent kill scenes, but it's completely overshadowed by one-dimensional characters being forced to say atrociously awful dialogue. But just like I said with Prom Queen, I am a sucker for these types of movies, so I was probably a bit more lenient on it than I should have been, thus it made it as high on the list as it did. Because I for sure thought this was going to be a bottom 10. At number 73, we have Playdate. Kevin James is a new stepdad who becomes friends with Alan Ritchson and his son, and they begin getting chased by men in suits. And this movie was meh. Number 72 is Ice Road Vengeance. This has got Liam Neeson in it, and I love him, so how could I not watch it? Liam Neeson is traveling to what is supposed to be Nepal, but I don't know about that, to spread his brother's ashes, and he runs into and must battle against a group of terrorists, because of course he does. It's a simple plot and dumb fun. It was an okay time. I did enjoy the first one more, though. Number 71, we have Into the Deep. A decent little shark movie. Nothing really stand out or special about it. It was cool to see Richard Dreyfuss back in a shark movie, even though he's not really given much to do here. This reminds me of several other shark movies like it. People are forced by criminals at gunpoint to dive under to retrieve something for the criminals, and they must deal with the terror above and below the surface. But whatever, it was a passable time killer. At number 70, we have The Woman in Cabin 10. And please do not tell my wife that I watched this without her. She was just taking way too long to read the book. Another one of these, a woman believes she witnesses some kind of crime happen and no one believes her type movies. Much like The Girl on the Train or The Woman in the Window, as you can tell by all these massively different titles going on. I do love the yacht aesthetic, but I am a sucker for anything aquatic themed, so that is on me. This just feels like something you've seen before, and you've seen it done better. It had some good moments early on, but it's really just a poor mystery. Like, you can solve it in the first 10 to 15 minutes easily. It's way too outlandish for the type of movie that it's trying to be. Generic, not memorable, not really worth your time. Number 69, we have The Bayou, another generic killer animal movie, this time with more alligators or crocodiles. Sometimes I have a hard time telling the difference, but I did enjoy this movie quite a bit. And why the hell does the main character start off British and then become American like 30 minutes into the movie? I swear she had an accent when she was in college, and then the second they get on the plane, she's talking like an American. That confused me. Anyway, so this is a passable 90-minute time filler if you like creature features and you have nothing better to do. At number 68, we have Coyotes, and this was actually better than I was expecting after seeing all the terrible reviews it was getting. CGI and AI coyotes look really bad at times, but if you couldn't tell by now, I like killer animal movies. I like the single location, contained bottleneck type thrillers. It's got a pretty good cast, and the characters they play are fairly entertaining. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely not the bottom of the bin like some of the other killer animal movies that I unfortunately have witnessed are. It was pretty okay. At number 67, we have 28 Years Later. Now, I love both 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later. I think those are both tremendous movies. Unfortunately for me, this one was another big disappointment on the year. I was really digging the first act when it was the father-son hunting aspect when they go onto the mainland. I thought that was very interesting. But from the second that the son pulls a knife on his dad for eating out some chick who isn't his mom, to the end, I just felt this movie going progressively downhill with such odd decisions. It's got great production value and some really interesting ideas. I just really hope everything comes together better when The Bone Temple comes out in January. At number 66, we have The Conjuring: Last Rites. An average demon possession haunting movie, which is not a very good thing for a Conjuring movie. The only ones I've liked less in this universe are The Two Nuns and The Curse of La Llorona. It has enough emotional depth with the Warrens, and they're still characters that I like and I'm interested in. But the movie takes forever to get going. It's like an hour and a half before the Warrens even start investigating this mystery. And then it just feels like all stuff we've seen done before, but better. Hey, does that sound familiar? It's passable and it has its moments, but it's just nowhere near as good as it should be, especially for possibly being the last chapter in the Conjuring series. At number 65, we have Train Dreams, and this movie excels in almost every category possible, except for being the kind of movie that I enjoy watching. Definitely going to be up for a lot of awards, and I totally understand why. It's poetic, it's visually striking, it's got some great performances, but this movie is just depressing and a slog to get through. It's just not my cup of tea. It's pretty much just, here's Joel Edgerton as a logger in the early 1900s, and look how fucking miserable his life is, as people around him just die in various ways. His wife and child die in a fire. He watches a coworker get thrown off a bridge for being Asian. William H. Macy gets a fucking tree dropped on him. It's got a lot more depth than I just made it sound, and it is great in like every technical possible way. It's just not a movie for me. Not on my wavelength. At 64, we have Love Hurts. Ke Huy Quan is a former assassin turned realtor who must contend with rivals and his lost love on Valentine's Day. Quan is fun to watch. It's been nice to see him having this resurgence and comeback these past few years. This has got some funny moments and some pretty neat fight scenes going on. Overall, it was pretty alright. Just another one that won't stick with you. At number 63, we have The Unholy Trinity. A man seeks revenge for his father's death and gets tied up in the hunt for a lost treasure in the Old West. You've got Pierce Brosnan and Samuel L. Jackson here, and I love them both. They're both great. How could they not be? And I love that David Arquette pops up here for a little bit. Always cool to see him. I am a big Western fan, and I thought this was a pretty decent time. Once again, nothing new and fairly predictable twists, but it was okay. At number 62, we have Borderline. Ray Nicholson is a mentally unstable man who breaks into the home of a pop star played by Samara Weaving, whom he believes he is set to get married to. And I love contained single-location thrillers. I don't know how many more times or ways I can say that for you, but this one just wasn't nearly as funny, as thrilling, or as shocking as I thought it should have been. Ray Nicholson is really good as the psycho. Samara Weaving weirdly feels alright. I don't know if it's her performance or the writing, but something just doesn't seem to click here. Alba Baptista is actually the standout for me here as the psychotic helper to Ray Nicholson. She was the most entertaining part of this movie for me. And it was also good to see Dr. Mark Sloan up and about. I really liked him here as Samara's bodyguard. I just feel like the movie as a whole should have been tighter. Tweet like a twiga. At number 61, we have Until Dawn. Nothing at all really like the video game, but better than I thought it would be. I would have preferred if they'd done a more straight up game adaptation, and I fucking hate when video games do this. They just take the title and then just change everything about the plot. What's the point? But what they end up going with here, with a group of friends searching for another missing friend, getting stuck in this time loop and repeatedly dying in all these different horrifying ways, I thought was fairly well done. Nothing spectacular, but a harmless horror flick. 60, we have The Fantastic Four, The First Steps. Now, I am not a superhero guy at all. There are definitely some that I love, but most of them usually fall into that generic person gets powers and must fight some sort of evil. I know that's kind of breaking it down to its most basic thing, but I just don't know how to put it any other way than it's just not my cup of tea. This one, while visually fantastic, falls into that category for me. I've never really found the Fantastic Four to be that interesting of characters. Besides Sue here, I feel like most of the characters are half-baked throughout the movie. I don't find Galactus to be very threatening for being a supposed planet-killing villain. Honestly, I would have just skipped this movie if I wasn't trying to watch as many movies as possible when I knew I was going to be doing this list. It made it a bit up this list, though, so it's not terrible. It's okay, it just definitely has its flaws. At number 59, we have Jurassic World Rebirth. And while not being nearly as bad as most people are making it out to be, it's still not great. I don't really care for all the mutant stuff. I think having just dinosaurs is more than enough for a Jurassic Park movie. There was absolutely no point in that family side plot besides padding out the runtime more. I do like that they try to embrace some of the more horror aesthetics. I just wish they would go back to more of the feel of the first one. I did really like the boat attack sequence. I thought that was the highlight of this entire movie. And at least this movie was better than the last two, so good job. It's alright, but it's disappointing when you think of what a Jurassic World movie could be if they just stopped dicking around. At number 58, we have Wes Anderson's latest film, The Phoenician Scheme. And if there's one thing we can all agree on here, this is certainly a Wes Anderson film. He has a style and quirkiness all to his own, and while I respect that he has his own vision, it gets really tiring after a while. I absolutely love his first 4 films, but lately his new movies just give me the feeling that I've seen this before, just done slightly different. If you're a Wes Anderson fan, you're obviously going to like this movie. Just for me, his last few just haven't hit like some of his previous movies have. Yeah. At number 57, we have Black Bag. A spy played by Michael Fassbender must find out if his wife, who is also a spy, is a traitor. I like Steven Soderbergh. He has a certain energy to his movies that I really appreciate. And this one was intriguing, but not all that riveting for a spy thriller. Apologies for the mic noise. Maggie really likes it. There's some good performances, and I am a sucker for espionage stories. I even like the quieter ones. This actually reminds me of The American with George Clooney. It's good, not great. At number 56, we have Predator, Killer of Killers. Unfortunately, I was not able to check out Badlands, so that won't be on this list. But I do really like the idea of this anthology movie following the Predator in 3 different time periods with a nice little tie-up at the end. Personally, I wish they would have done this in live action. I know it would have been more expensive, but I just don't really get into animated movies as much nowadays. And I didn't really care for the art style they went with here either. In some of the more over-the-top aspects of it, it kind of made the Predator look a bit dumb. And I do worry that they potentially wasted these story ideas on this movie, and now they're never going to do it simply because they'll look at it and say, well, we already did it with this one, so why would we waste our time? It's a good side story. I just don't know how else to explain it other than this feels more like fan fiction than a new addition to the series to me. At number 55, we have The Best You Can, a romantic dramedy with an intriguing setup with Kevin Bacon as the security guard of... What? With Kevin Bacon as the security guard of this gated community, and Kyra Sedgwick is a resident who is married to a much older man who is suffering from dementia. They have a little run-in and start forming a friendship that begins to... Okay, bye. They develop a friendship that begins to grow beyond what either of them would have expected, and begins to grow into more of a friendship, as you could obviously guess. And they have great chemistry, as you would hope, since they have been married in real life for almost 40 years. It's got some funny moments, it's got some decent drama, sometimes a little too overdone on the drama side, but it's nice enough. And the ending was a bit what the fuck, because it just kind of ended instead of having some kind of satisfying finish to the story. But I did enjoy this one quite a bit. At number 54, we have A House of Dynamite, the latest thriller by Kathryn Bigelow, but unfortunately, not nearly her best. Certainly some well-done tension here, but the way they decided to structure the movie, with it being chapters telling the same events but from different points of view, I don't think was the right way to go about it. I do like that type of angle in movies sometimes, like Snake Eyes I think does it very well, but it doesn't really add any perspective or add anything new. It just literally shows you the same events just from a different angle. And it's more about how different roles respond to the situation in different ways. And the ending, I think, is entirely unsatisfying with how they wrap things up. Not to nitpick, I do think this is a good movie. It's got a stacked cast who, unfortunately, never feel like they're given too much to do. The editing is outstanding. I would not be surprised if whoever edited this goes up for an Oscar. But the script really needed some focus here, for sure. Overall, this is a good movie that should have been amazing. At number 53, we have Beast of War, a good shark movie with a really cool setup. Australian soldiers during World War II are stranded in the ocean and are picked off one by a killer shark. You can tell it's low budget, and it really feels like it was filmed on a water tank. Especially with all the fog constantly, you're never given a definitive background or skyline or anything. Which also gives the film kind of this annoying camera glare at times that becomes very irritating. It wasn't as awesome as I would hope given the premise, but I thought this was a really well done shark thriller, and kudos to them for using a mechanical shark. At number 52, we have Havoc, a run-of-the-mill corrupt cop conspiracy thriller that is saved entirely by its cast. Tom Hardy's cool. I absolutely love Timothy Olyphant. He is one of my favorite actors of all time, easily in my top 10. It's always awesome to see Forrest Whitaker. I really like the director too, but you can just see every reveal in this movie coming from a mile away. It's got some good action sequences, and I do like this type of movie, but it is just nowhere near good as it should be given the talent involved. At number 51, we have Don't Mess with Grandma. Michael Jai White kicking people's asses out of his beloved grandmother's house. What more do you need to say? It's super low budget, and it shows. They really should have done another pass or two at the script to tighten it up more, but I thought this was a pretty fun time. I love Michael Jai White. I think he's such an underrated talent, not just with his action, but I think he's absolutely hilarious too. This had a lot of fun moments. I just think with a little bit bigger action, a tighter script, and an ending that went well together and didn't just feel like it just ended, would have helped boost this movie up a lot more, but as is, it was an enjoyable time. Number 50, we have Last Breath, the true story of a deep-sea diver stuck on the ocean floor and the rescue attempt to retrieve him. This is a really good movie with some really tense moments for a real-life situation, especially if you've seen the documentary this movie is based on. But for some reason, it just doesn't feel as memorable as it should have been. As stated before, I love movies that are focused around water, but this was kind of a one and done for me. Number 49 is Fear Below, And I was expecting a semi-decent shark movie with this, and what I got was a lot better than expected. Gangsters in either the 1940s or the 1950s force scuba divers to go into a river to retrieve some merchandise that they lost, as a bull shark shows up and starts feasting. Like Into the Deep, this plot is very similar to a lot of other movies, especially Red Water. That's the main movie these all remind me of every time I see this plot. But I really enjoyed this one, and I like the period piece aspect of it too. This was definitely a nice surprise. At number 48, we have The Thursday Murder Clubs. Seniors in a retirement home gather every week to solve cold case murders. It's got some fun, it's got some mystery, it's got a charming cast. The mystery was decent, but nothing complex. But it's smart enough to keep switching things up a little bit, and the reveals are kept mostly a neat surprise. It's nothing mind-blowing, and it's not laugh-out-loud hilarious, but it's got enough going on consistently to keep you engaged. At number 47, we have A Working Man. The newest entry in the Jason Statham is a guy with a mysterious past that gave him a particular set of skills series. Is it familiar? Of course it is. Jason Statham, you can't really accuse of having the most range as an actor, but I can't really think of a single movie of his that I don't enjoy on some level, except maybe Expendables 4. It's cool to see Michael Pena and David Harbour in this, even though I feel like both of them are heavily underutilized. It's a typical Jason Statham movie with a typical Jason Statham plot and typical Jason Statham kicking ass. It's just not as good as some of his other ones. It's a bit too messy and convoluted than it needs to be. At number 46, we have Play Dirty, one of two Mark Wahlberg movies on this list, and I am utterly shocked that this one ended up being the lesser of the two. And I am a big fan of most of Shane Black's writing and directing efforts, besides The Predator. Fuck that movie. And while it's nowhere near his worst, it's definitely nowhere near his best either. Given that this movie is right up his wheelhouse, a silver-tongued crime caper, the fact that this didn't meet expectations, even the low end of them, is very disappointing. And this doesn't even feel like a real Parker story. Mark Wahlberg has the Parker name, and he has some of the skin-deep characteristics, but this feels like an entirely different person. This is still an enjoyable time with some fun moments and some decent action, but compared to things like The Nice Guys and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, it is a big letdown, unfortunately. At number 45, we have Heads of State. The President of the United States and England's Prime Minister must go on the run after being targeted. This was an overall average action comedy that is entirely saved by its leads in John Cena and Idris Elba having a little bit of a Suicide Squad reunion. Hey, there's a superhero movie that I watched and really loved. They are both a blast here, as is Jack Quaid, who appears in 3 other movies on this list, so what a busy year that guy has had. Once again, it's a movie with decent action and some fun moments, but it's nothing that's going to be remembered in a few years. The reveals were blatantly obvious too, but I just tend to like these type of movies. I'm forgiving on action comedies as long as it gives me most of what I want. At number 44, we have Getaway. A fun and twisted little horror thriller that starts off as a fairly cliche cult, people on an island type horror that takes a big swing and turns everything on its head at the beginning of the 3rd act, and I absolutely dug it. Nick Frost and his family go to this I believe it's a Swedish island for a holiday and are very clearly not welcome there. It's a good spin on the folk horror that is completely saved by its rug pull twist. At number 43, we have One of Them Days. Keke Palmer and SZA must come up with their rent money in order to save their apartment. Not the greatest plot, obviously, but this turned out to be a lot funnier than I expected it to be. I love Keke Palmer, as I stated earlier when I was talking about the pickup. I had never seen SZA act before. I'm not sure if she has or not, but she was really funny in this. Nothing great, but this was a pretty fun movie. At number 42, we have Summer of '69, a throwback to those early 2000s sex comedies like American Pie and Road Trip. And while I don't think this is as funny as those were, I do think this was a genuinely good time. An oddball high schooler hires a stripper to teach her how to gain confidence and 69 her way to the man of her dreams. It sounds stupid, and it is. It's not necessarily non-stop laughs, but it's enough decent laughs throughout. I had a good time. A decent coming-of-age person coming out of their shell, growing out of their shell type movie. It's familiar, but it's done well. At 41, we have Freakier Friday. Definitely one of the better long-awaited sequels with those multi-decade gaps in between. And while I don't think it's nearly anywhere as good as the original, or the remake, whatever you fucking want to term it as, it's a lot better than you expect it to, and I like the little dynamic shift they do, adding in the granddaughters this time. The first part of that movie was a little rough, wasn't really that good, but once it hit the body swap, once we hit the body swap, and from there until the end, I thought the movie picked up and was a really enjoyable time. It was pretty good. At number 40, we have Anaconda, the only movie on this list that I have done a review for, so please check that out if you want to. Not necessarily the most memorable comedy with Jack Black or Paul Rudd, and I do think it is hurt by the lack of horror and the lack of good CGI going on. But it was a decent comedy that just happened to have a giant killer snake in it. This was just another type of my kind of movie that I had a decent time with. At number 39, we have Him, a football horror movie starring Marlon Wayans. What a fucking combo. And all I heard was the negative reviews people had towards this movie, so I went in with ultra low expectations watching it, and I ended up enjoying it a lot more than I think most people did. But there is a lot of untapped potential here. First off, the visual filmmaking part, I think, is done fantastic. It almost comes off as a music video in scenes, and I think it's to the movie's benefit. The lead actor here, Tyreek Withers, I can't exactly remember his name. He does really well here, a lot better here than he did in I Know What You Did Last Summer. Marlon Wayans does great here as the veteran GOAT of this football league. He's like this movie's Tom Brady, but if Tom Brady was in a satanic cult. But the plot is way too thin for a movie like this that feels like it's trying to be so much bigger and give out this big, deep, meaningful message. The message itself is fine, but it only has this one thing to say, and it just kind of keeps repeating and repeating all throughout all three acts. And the third act definitely needed a bit of reworking, especially the ending I thought should have been worked a lot better. But overall, this was an unexpectedly good time. If you haven't checked this out just because of the negative reviews you've been seeing, I'd say take a chance to make up your own mind. At number 38, we have Superman. And as I said earlier with the Fantastic Four, I am not a superhero guy. I was in no rush to check this out, as Superman firmly fits into that category of generic superhero stories that I just don't get into. And while not being a classic by any means, it was actually a way better movie than I thought it would be. Superman's got some layers. I love that Lex Luthor is just a prime-time super hater. I love the little side plot with Jimmy Olsen being this undeniable chick magnet. Nathan Fillion was hilarious. Plot and story-wise, it's where it's more average and generic. It just felt like it fell into the trap of most generic superhero movies. It did feel like a strong start for the DC, despite the fact that I didn't like it nearly as much as I liked James Gunn's previous DC movie, The Suicide Squad. And coming in just above that at 37 is Thunderbolt, the highest rated superhero movie I have on this list. For the third time now, I am not much of a superhero guy, but this was just different enough from the usual kind of stuff, while still being kind of reminiscent of other things like Suicide Squad. This is only the fourth Marvel project that I've seen out of the 2079 Marvel movies and TV shows that they have done. So there was some stuff that I kind of had to fill in the gaps for that I was obviously missing plot-wise or story-wise. But I enjoyed this a lot more than I would have guessed. It's got some fun characters and some decent action. I can see why this is one of the more highly praised Marvel movies as of late. Also, Seinfeld is one of my favorite sitcoms, so it was an absolute delight to see Elaine show up here as the villain. Spoilers, possibly. I don't think so. At 36, we have The Toxic Avenger, a fun action romp remake of the 80s trauma cult classic. And this has got a lot of cheese and a lot of schlock and a lot of camp in the best way possible. Kevin Bacon and Elijah Wood are great as the villainous side of this movie. It's just weird enough without really overdoing it. I love that Elijah Wood was this deformed, almost Danny DeVito penguin looking type dude who was trying to be the manager of like a murdercore band. It was ridiculous. Granted, I've never seen the original, but I enjoyed this one so much that it actually makes me want to go out and watch the original. Not fantastic, but really good and crazy enough to stand out on its own. Number 35, we have Dark Match. Wrestling and a horror in one movie. You're getting a hell yeah out of me, brother. I wasn't expecting much out of this due to it being a low-budget release straight to Shudder, but I really dug this. I'm not the biggest Chris Jericho fan, but I thought he did really well here. As a wrestling fanatic, I was entertained even in the non-horror scenes, and it's got some fun characters with a really fucked up premise. Once again, nothing great, but it's really good. And it has a wild-ass ending that while I don't quite think it fits with the rest of the movie, I applaud it for going balls out. Number 34 is actually the last movie that I watched before recording this video, and that is Begonia. Yorgos Lanthimos movies are definitely compelling, but they're not quite for me. I enjoy quite a few of... I don't even know if enjoy is the right word. I like quite a few of his movies, but none of them feel like they fully get there for me. And this one, unfortunately, was just kind of more of the same. I liked it, but it was a bit too weird in places, and the ending was a bit too much of a downer and too nihilistic for my taste. It was a good concept with great performances. Emma Stone is great as usual. Glad to see she got to keep a little bit more clothes on than she did in Poor Things. Jesse Plemons, absolutely fantastic. I love seeing him rise and rise every time I watch a movie. I liked it. I just didn't quite love it. But I get why it's going to be more towards the top for a lot of other people. It's just not for me. At number 33, we have Jay Kelly, a film focusing on mortality and loyalty, focusing on a famous actor, Jay Kelly, played by George Clooney, having a midlife crisis, or rather, a later life crisis, where he's starting to second-guess his life choices in choosing fame and fortune over having close relationships with friends and family. Along with that, you've got Adam Sandler as his devoted manager who views himself more as a friend than an employee. It's got some great performances, as you would expect. I love seeing these serious performances out of Adam Sandler lately, especially because it just doesn't feel like he really tries with his comedies that much nowadays. It's got some great direction and some neat visual tricks, especially with a lot of the transitions, especially towards the flashbacks. It definitely feels like it's a bit rambling in the beginning and like it takes a little bit to find its footing. But for what feels like the typical Oscar bait type movie, this is one of the more enjoyable ones that I've seen this year. At number 32, we have Strange Harvest. This is a really good mockumentary horror movie about a serial killer who torments Southern California for a couple of decades. I just wish this movie was a little bit shorter. It feels like it drags leading up to the finale. But I liked it a lot, especially some of the more cosmic horror things that come out for a little bit towards the end of the movie. Definitely go see this if you have not. At number 31, we have Neighborhood Watch, Jack Quaid's second appearance on this list. this time as a schizophrenic who believes he witnesses the kidnapping of a woman and enlists the help of his cynical and bitter ex-security guard neighbor, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, for help. And they make a really great pairing with some really great chemistry. There's quite a few unexpected laughs that come out of this. And it's got an interesting setup with the usual detective story, but with our main characters being so mentally fucked up. I wish the kidnapping angle was wrapped up a little bit more excitingly, but with this being a more character-driven story, I understand the direction they went in. It was just a really good time. I highly recommend you check this one out. At number 30, we have Hard Eyes. And this was a really fun slasher rom-com mashup. I love Mason Gooding. He is so charming and charismatic. He is definitely one of my more favorite rising actors at the moment. Devon Sawa pops up for a small but fun part. It's got some decent kills. It's got a really fun vibe. The reveals were meh, but not terrible. If you like slashers, I don't think you'll regret checking this one out. At number 29, we have The Monkey. Now, I haven't been overly crazy for any of Osgood Perkins' movies thus far, but this is easily my favorite that he's done. There's a lot of funny moments and some really good gore going on. It's really imaginative, but I feel like the second half just needed something a bit more going on. The first half felt like it was going all steam ahead, and the second half just does not feel like it lived up to that setup. Still, it was an entertaining time overall, just didn't quite love it. At number 28, we have How to Train Your Dragon. Now, I'm not particularly crazy about these live-action remakes to animated movies, but this is easily one of the best ones that I have seen. It is visually impressive and really well directed, and it's actually really cool to see Jared Butler as a live-action Viking this time around. While it keeps a lot of the charm and the heart of the original, I wish it didn't stick so faithfully to it, because it feels like a lot of something you've seen before. So while it feels like you're kind of watching the same movie, it is a movie that I love, so I did enjoy this and I had a really good time. At number 27, we have Drop. And this gave me the vibe of those 80s, 90s, and some early 2000s low to mid-budget single location thrillers that I told you that I love so much. And I like this one too. It's got a cool setup with this woman on a blind date starting to receive mysterious airdrops telling her that she must kill her date or her sister and her young son will be murdered. The two leads are excellent, and there are some great scenarios going on. I just don't think there was enough plot here for the runtime. And I was hoping for a better reveal of the who and the why of what was going on. It actually reminded me a bit of Red Eye once you kind of get into those explanations. But I still liked it enough for it to be this high on the list, and it's definitely one I could see myself rewatching. At number 26, we have The Amateur. A nice spin on the espionage genre with Rami Malek as a CIA analyst type who can't really fight and decides to blackmail his superiors into training him so he can go and hunt down his wife's killers. Once again, it's nothing revolutionary, but it is a type of movie that I enjoy, and I do think it is done very well here. Rami Malek gives a good performance. You got Lawrence Fishburne here and there throughout the movie as the guy training him. The movie definitely could have used a bit more Lawrence Fishburne here. You got a random-ass John Bernthal appearance. And there's some really funny moments going on, like when Rami's trying to break into the guy's apartment and he's having to YouTube how to pick a lock. Like, that was just so funny to me. This was just an enjoyable thriller. I actually didn't even know it was based on a book or it was a remake of a previous movie. At number 25, we have Locked. I wasn't really sold on the concept of Bill Skarsgård being stuck in this car for the entire movie, but I ended up really enjoying this. Skarsgård gives a great performance and easily carries the whole movie on his shoulders. You've got Anthony Hopkins being a little menace in there. That's always fun. It does really well with never feeling like it's being too boring or repetitive. It keeps adding just slight new additions to the wrinkle to keep things fresh and interesting. It's better than you would probably think given the plot, and it was a really good time. At number 24, I can guarantee you I probably have this higher on my list than anybody else would, and that is Flight Risk. I'll be right up front with this. This movie is stupid as shit, but I had such a blast with it. Another movie that reminded me of low to mid-budget thrillers that primarily take place in one location. Are you noticing a pattern yet? You've got Mark Wahlberg as a balding assassin with a bad southern accent posing as a pilot trying to take out Topher Grace. And honestly, this just feels like the type of movie Mel Gibson would have starred in back in the 90s. I like the cast a lot, especially Topher Grace. I've always thought he was such an underrated actor who can do a lot of different things, but a lot of people just look at him for comedy. There's some idiotic moments for sure. I just had a really good time when I watched this. It's over the top, it's idiotic, it's stupid. And that's just my jam sometimes. At number 23, we have Hell of a Summer. A typical slasher where summer camp counselors are being stalked by a masked killer and being picked off one by one. It's fairly predictable, yeah, but I love slasher movies, especially ones with a camp setting. It's not very gory, and while I don't mind that, I do wish they had better kill sequences without necessarily focusing on the gore. Some more suspense would have helped this out for sure, but as is, I just thought it was a really fun ride. The characters and the humor more than made up for any lack of kills or suspense in this movie for me. There's some genuinely hilarious one-liners that cracked me up. And the character of Bobby, the best friend who's desperately trying to get laid but just can't find a chance to, was probably my favorite thing throughout the movie. This was actually just a really good time, and it was the directorial debut of Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things and the newer Ghostbusters movies, along with his co-director, who is the actor who played Bobby, who I just mentioned in this movie. At number 22, we have Final Destination Bloodlines, the newest addition to the Final Destination franchise, of which I like all but the fourth one. But I actually don't think this movie is nearly as good as people are making it out to be. I actually didn't even enjoy it the first time I watched it. But on rewatch, I grew to like it a lot more. But to me, it's an average Final Destination movie. It's not even in the top 2 or 3. But it is fun, and it does switch up the dynamic enough to give it just a bit of a different flavor going on here. I like quite a few of the characters. There are some really good deaths, but especially the setups and sequences leading to the deaths are tremendous. Like the Uncle Howard kill, Eric in the tattoo shop, the dump truck kill, the entire hospital sequence. That's probably the standout for most people here. Unfortunately, it's just a bit too goofy for me at times, and it is killed by the CGI that they use in this thing. And I know it's a Final Destination movie, so you can't take it too seriously, but still, the goofiness level on this just rises up way too much. And CGI really bothers me, especially when it stands out and is really noticeable, and this movie is a big offender of that. It just never seems to blend well together, especially in a lot of horror movies. At number 21, we have Nobody 2. Once again, another movie I'm just naturally predisposed to liking. I absolutely loved the first one, and while I don't think this one is nearly as good as it is still an enjoyable ride. It cranks the humor up a lot more, sometimes successfully, but a bit too often, a little too much. But it does have some genuinely funny moments and some really kick-ass action sequences going on. But I had really high expectations for this movie. I genuinely thought it would easily make my top 5, and here it didn't even make my top 20. So though it's still a good time that I wouldn't mind rewatching and would definitely recommend to people to check out, it was still a bit of a disappointment. At number 20, we have Ballerina, the John Wick spin-off with Ana de Armas going through the Ballerina School of Assassins. And I really like this movie. I'm glad it didn't feel like a subpar spin-off like a lot of these franchises seem to get. It's got some really great fights. It's got some really great action. It's a simple story of revenge, but the action, the pacing, the fight scenes, the visuals all more than make up for the simplicity. And weirdly, I don't think this movie needed Keanu Reeves in it as John Wick, but I do enjoy how they utilized him, and I'm glad they didn't do something that actually denigrates his character in any way. All in all, it was a worthy addition to the series and a kick-ass action movie that you should check out if you haven't. At number 19, we have Novocaine. Jack Quaid makes his return to the list as a bank manager who must use his rare genetic condition of not being able to feel pain to save the day when bank robbers kidnap the love of his life. And he does really well here as the introverted and shy bank manager who is thrust into action and the spotlight in order to save his crush. And there is just a lot of laughs and mayhem to be had with this simple concept. It's just a fun action comedy that obviously has the same setup as 1,000 other movies, but adds just enough of a small spin on it to help it stand out. The scene especially where he punches glass to embed his hands with the shards so he can fight that big dude is a particular standout for me. It does start to lose a bit of steam heading into the finale, but overall I thought this was a really great movie. At number 18 we have Fight or Flight, John Wick on a Bullet Train with Josh Hartnett. Hell fucking yeah. Josh Hartnett rules, and this is a seriously fun and badass action movie. Again, it's nothing original plot-wise, but it's got some fun characters and some really entertaining action and fight sequences going on. I like the close quarters setting with him being trapped on this plane that's just full of assassins. It's a good bottleneck type story that I like, and they do it well here. And hopefully this leads to Josh Hartnett just being in more and more movies, because I've always loved that guy. At number 17, we have Weapons. From the director of Barbarian, we have one of the big blockbuster horror movies of the year. And the concept alone had me intrigued enough that I didn't even need to watch a trailer or anything to know that I wanted to check this movie out. Unfortunately, I do think this movie suffered from being severely overhyped. I did like it, especially the acting and the directing, but I had so many people tell me that this was the best movie of the year, the best movie of the decade, one of the best movies of all time. And it's good, but it ain't that. It's not nearly as funny or as scary as I was led to believe it would be. I mean, it's still number 17 on a list of 97 movies, so clearly I did like it quite a bit. And I actually liked it more on my rewatch than my first watch, so I'm assuming the more I watch it, hopefully the more that I will continue to grow to like it and love it. As of now, I can say that I absolutely loved Barbarian, and I only really liked Weapons. At number 16, we have Clown in a Cornfield. And this was so much better than I was expecting. I was thinking this was just going to be a fairly generic slasher movie with a clown in it. And wow, what a surprise this was. I loved it. It was a genuinely fun time. It's got a lot of great kills. It's got some really fun characters. And it has a nice little twist about halfway through that I just was not ready for. If you're a slasher fan, especially with like clown type movies, definitely check this one out, but try to go into it without reading too much. At number 15, we have Dangerous Animals. A serial killer kidnaps people to feed them to sharks. And that's all I needed to know that I was gonna fucking love this movie. While it's not the shark movie I was hoping it would be, since there's only really like 2 or 3 scenes with sharks in this was such a fun little oddball serial killer thriller that I just absolutely loved. Jai Courtney was an absolute blast here. It's great to see him chewing up the scenery after some not so great attempts at bigger budget movies. The main character here, played by Hassie Harrison, was amazing. I've never seen her in anything, but she was so good that I am now on the lookout for anything else she is going to pop up in. I loved how much of a fighter she was and how far she was willing to go to get her freedom back. I just enjoyed damn near every minute of this movie. At number 14, we have Oh Hi. and what a nice little twist on the rom-com this dark movie was. Got Logan Lerman and Molly Gordon, who are together on a road trip to the High Falls area of New York, I believe it is, and things do not quite go as planned for the romantic weekend. I went into this blind, as you should, and I was pleasantly surprised by what they had in store. It's definitely on the darker side of romance movies, but as I've said, I love these small, self-contained movies that are all about the characters. I like the leads here. They're both great. It's got a great setup. There's some endearing moments, some really funny parts, and it keeps adding new elements just to keep things fresh. I don't want to overhype it as the best thing ever because I know how much that can ruin a movie for people when you're told how great it is and you think it's going to be here and it's like, even if it's here, it doesn't quite live up. But if you're a fan of this genre, definitely go check it out. I thought this movie was great. At number 13, we have Caught Stealing. Austin Butler is an ex-baseball player turned bartender who gets caught up in a mystery with unsavory characters after he agrees to cat sit for his punk rock neighbor. And I fucking love this movie. It was a great 90s thriller throwback. It has a fun cast with a nice little mystery playing out. It's got an intriguing setup and a couple twists of things I didn't see coming, with certain people dying and certain sides that people who you're not sure what side of the law they might be on. It's certainly not the type of movie I would expect from Darren Aronofsky, but I'm glad he made it because this was an absolute blast. At number 12, we have The Life of Chuck. And what an odd friggin' movie this was. And I wasn't even sure if I really liked it at first, but the more I sit and think about it and stew on it, the more I enjoy it and the more I can't stop thinking about it. It's definitely something that I will rewatch quite a bit to try and get more out of and comprehend a bit more the more I watch it. But I just love how it explores the wonders and the mysteries of life while also exploring themes like loss, love, and human connection. It's told backwards, starting with Act 3, which was a bit confusing at first for me, but when you see how surreal and odd this movie is, it makes perfect sense. Definitely not what you would expect from a Mike Flanagan directed movie of a Stephen King book, that's for sure. Despite being a bit flawed, I think it's a movie that just feels so good and has such a good message about living life to the fullest and embracing and cherishing those small moments that it more than makes up for whatever little nitpicks I might have. And it's got a great cast, too, that is just absolutely stacked. The standout for me, surprisingly, was Matthew Lillard, who I love to see show up, even if it just was for one scene, but he absolutely killed it here. It is a bit weird that Tom Hiddleston is the main character and he only gets about 15 minutes of screen time, and his story of the middle chapter feels like the least memorable part of the movie. But that's like more of an observation than a complaint. I really dug this movie. At number 11, we have Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. By far the messiest and most convoluted of all the Mission Impossibles. This script really needed to be squeezed tighter. They could have cut at least 45 minutes out of this movie, and it still would have felt more than fulfilling. Some stuff, like the White House scenes, felt stretched out, and the whole Phelps-Son connection was just totally unnecessary. As a result, it does have some pacing issues, as well as some editing problems going on. Like, the opening is really good, but then it feels like the movie just drags its feet for a little bit, up until the point where Tom Cruise jumps out of the plane into the ocean. Then the movie really kicks off and just builds and builds until the end. Having gotten those complaints out of the way, I absolutely love all of these movies, even the second one, which is nowhere close in quality to any of the others. It's still a good time. I love the characters here, so I'm a bit more forgiving on the shortcomings if it means I get to spend more time in this world. And this movie is just so adrenaline pumping. The fight scenes are amazing. The set pieces are absolutely phenomenal. The submarine sequence had my nuts up in my stomach. It was so tense. And then to follow that up with the plane finale sequence was just absolutely outstanding. Tom Cruise as an actor is phenomenal. And what a fucking nutbag that at over 60 years old, he's still willing to put himself in these predicaments just for the sake of cinema. It's never short of a blast to see what he's willing to do, and while this isn't my favorite of the franchise by any means, it's still an awesome addition to a series that I love. Woo! Finally cracking the top 10, and at number 10 is one of the biggest surprises for the year for me, and that is The Rule of Jenny Penn. It's so fucking weird, and I absolutely loved it. You've got Jeffrey Rush as a judge who suffers a stroke and is put into an assisted living facility where John Lithgow terrorizes the residents with a little doll that he puts on his hand as a puppet. Just by the plot, I thought this was going to be pretty stupid, so I was not expecting it to be anywhere as good or as creepy as it turned out to be, especially with the absolutely psychotic performance by John Lithgow as this fucking menace. It's got a few funny moments to ease a little bit of the tension at times, it's got a really good score, it's got great performances, and it's got a really creepy atmosphere. It's probably not one that I will watch super often, but I'm definitely looking forward to the next time I do check this out. I dug this way more than I could have ever anticipated. If you were a fan of horror, especially small, oddball ones, definitely seek this one out. At number 9, we have Sinners, the other big horror blockbuster of the year, and unfortunately, much like Weapons, one that was severely overhyped for me. Obviously, I still really dug this movie. I mean, it made number 9 out of almost 100 movies on this list. It's just not quite the classic I think most people are making it out to be. It feels odd to explain that while I think this movie is great, I just don't think it's quite as amazing as it's said. Anyways, you got some great directing, you got a great dual performance out of Michael B. Jordan as these two totally different twins. I forget the name of the actor who plays Sammy, but he is fantastic. It's got some great visuals. The atmosphere is absolutely tremendous. To me, it does a few weird choices at times, and while I get why they went with those choices, it seems like stuff that takes me out of the movie more than it helps me understand what they're going for. Just a little bit distracting. But it also helps that I absolutely love vampire movies, and I think this was a great addition into that subgenre. At number 8, we have Guillermo del Toro's newest movie, which is the latest take on the classic tale, Frankenstein. And it is wonderful. I love gothic horror movies, and I really don't think many people do it better than Del Toro. He's a great visual director and is clearly very passionate about the source material. I've never been super big on the story of Frankenstein, but I really like the direction and the way he took things here. You've got some great performances and some really interesting story arcs going on. I do wish there was a little bit more in the last chapter after all the buildup you have from both Frankenstein and the creature's point of view leading to this big finale. But it doesn't hurt the movie at all. I absolutely love this, and if you haven't seen it, go over to Netflix and check it out. At number 7, we have The Long Walk, the last of the Stephen King adaptations for me this year. And while most of his movies are very hit or miss for me, this one was a huge hit. Definitely not a movie that I would call entertaining or even enjoyable, set in a dystopian America where young men from each state must participate in a contest called The Long Walk. It is such a riveting and dramatic thriller with some great performances all around. Philip Seymour Hoffman was one of my favorite actors of all time, rest in peace. So to see his son Cooper on screen here really shows that he inherited some of that talent and charisma that his dad possessed. I loved the character of Peter as the co-lead. He was absolutely awesome and a great counterpart to Cooper's character of Ray. I thought Judy Greer was absolutely heart-wrenching in the few scenes that she got. She was just tremendous. And the idea of this competition where you just have to walk until there is one man left standing is just so fucked up. But having read the book, I do wish they had kept a bit more of the crowd scenes in there. They build this up like this is this big inspirational thing across America, And you really only get these tiny little glimpses of crowds at the very end of the movie, whereas in the book it was a consistent thing throughout. But this is an all-around great movie with just some minor nitpicks that I was throwing out. It's just an emotionally heavy movie that I foresee having a hard time just willingly throwing it on as a movie to watch. And at number 6 we have Roofman. What a surprise this movie was. Such an interesting true story with a great performance by Channing Tatum. It's got a lot of great moments and a lot of heart with Channing Tatum as a thief they call the Roofman because of his knack for breaking into McDonald's through the roof to rob them. He eventually gets caught and then escapes from prison, where he then hides out in a Toys R Us, where he eventually becomes involved with an employee played by Kirsten Dunst. My only minuscule nitpick with this movie would be that at times it does feel a bit repetitive in the beats that it's going over, as well as never really putting much focus on Channing Tatum's family from the beginning and the daughter that he's doing this all for, that he eventually just is forced not to have contact with while he's on the run. I get why they couldn't or didn't include them more, but it would have been nice to see some kind of bigger resolution going on. Other than that, I thought this was an absolutely tremendous movie that was highly entertaining. Alright, top 5. We're finally almost there, guys. And at number 5, we have my favorite horror movie of the year, and that is Together. I know about the possible controversy with the whole plagiarism thing, but from everything that I've seen in it, it just seems like one of those really bad coincidental timing things. Disregarding all of that, this is just a fucked up and wild ass movie. It covers the themes of codependency and mental illness without getting too overblown or preachy about it like a lot of movies seem to do nowadays. It's got some absolutely great use of body horror throughout. It is so intriguing and so creepy. And I love Dave Franco and Alison Brie in this movie and their chemistry, which, given the fact that they're married in real life, you would hope that they had good chemistry going on. I do wish that the ending had a bit more of a punch, but I don't mind how it ends. This was just a fucked up wild time all around, and I absolutely loved it. At number 4, we have The Accountant 2. Ben Affleck is back as the accountant in the sequel that felt like it took way too fucking long to come out. But it's absolutely great. I have actually had a hard time debating which one I liked more, the first one or this one, but I am leaning more towards this one just because it embraces a lot more of that fun vibe and the amazing chemistry and back and forth between Ben Affleck and Jon Bernthal. They give really good performances, and this really ramps up the comedy factor and the heart factor, and it was just a blast of a movie. The villain and the mystery is nothing special, much like the first one, but it works as well as the movie needs it to, and I absolutely adored everything about this. On to number 3, we have The Naked Gun, one of the funniest movies I've seen in at least the past decade. This was absolutely hilarious. I'm a big fan of the OG movies with Leslie Nielsen, and I love that this movie kept in line with the same similar type of humor. Liam Neeson is a great replacement. His deadpan is absolutely fantastic. Pam Anderson was hilarious. I was not expecting that from her at all. And there's so many funny visual jokes and clever gags going on, especially the cutaway joke about halfway through the movie with the snowman. I just about died laughing when I watched this movie. And at number 2, Jack Quaid's best movie of the year is my second favorite of the year, and that is Companion. What an out-of-nowhere movie this was. I hadn't really heard anyone talk about this. I hadn't really seen anything about it. So when I went into this blind, every twist and turn threw me through an absolute loop. It's batshit wild, and it's an absolute thrill ride with some really interesting ideas and some fun characters and some great themes going on. For anyone who might not have seen it or heard anything about it, definitely check this out if you're into thrillers with a lot of comedic edge to it, but some real darkness to it. It's a bit of a rom-com mixed with a thriller. I can't really go into too much without spoiling it, but definitely go and check this out as blind as you possibly can. You will not regret this. Don't watch a trailer, don't look at posters, don't read a synopsis. It's three couples meeting at a fancy-ass cabin for a vacation weekend getaway, and things go absolutely wrong. That's all you need to know, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. Jack Quaid is great in it. You've got, I believe her name is Sophie Thatcher from Yellow Jackets, the young Juliette Lewis. She is the lead in this movie, and she is just phenomenal. It was just funny. It was thrilling. It's fucking fantastic, and it is my second favorite movie of 2025. But coming in at number 1, and what a surprise it was, is F1, the movie. Now, I'm not a racing guy at all. I'm not even really a sports guy. In fact, the only sports that I really like is entertainment, if you smell what I'm cooking. But I do love a good old classic sports movie, and that's what this is. A classic sports drama with fun characters, good performances, a great score, and some intense racing scenes. Brad Pitt is an absolute blast. I love his interactions with pretty much everyone in this movie, from Damson Idris to Kerry Condon to Javier Bardem. Just so much fun consistently throughout. It's certainly nothing groundbreaking story-wise, and it definitely has its cliches, but cliches are cliches for a reason, and that's just because they work so well. You've got the down-and-out veteran trying to make a comeback. You've got the rising, cocky rookie who thinks he's bigger than he is. You've got their building friendship rivalry going on, and how their dynamic continues to grow and evolve over time. This just reminded me of a lot of sports dramas that I grew up watching that I absolutely loved. This is another feel-good one that I will gladly rewatch quite often, and it is absolutely my number 1 favorite movie of the year 2025. And that's it. Thank you to anyone who has made it all the way through the end. This is by far the longest video I will have had uploaded on this, so I appreciate anyone who was willing to stick it through with me. Be sure to go to the comments and let me know, did you agree or disagree with the list? What were your most favorites, least favorites of the year? Or, if you're feeling spicy, leave me a list of your entire ranking of every movie you watched this year. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe to not miss out on any videos in the future, and I shall see y'all in the next year.